This is Big Girl Pants Podcast,
where we talk about women, health, power, and wealth.
hosted by
April Melton.
and Kimberly Shapiro.
We are real women with real jobs doing real life.
Join us while we showcase inspirational stories and inspirational people.
Come on, y'all. Put your big girl pants on and stay tuned.
Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Hi.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm so great.
So for the third time, and
Number
definitely
3.
not the last,
1, 2,
you're going to be
3.
like, you're our most return guest.
For sure.
I'm the
He is.
Michael
You were
Jordan of the
winner.
show. This
You were
is the first
winner.
three-peat.
Too much.
Yep.
Too much.
Come on.
What?
We got to start the second
You're like,
three-peat.
please let me have that analogy, please.
I love it.
No, you don't get it.
But it's
just
so
kidding.
much fun to have you back.
I know, and honestly, I really treasure our episodes
I do
because
too.
the conversation is so organic. Like, we could just go for hours.
I know.
I don't even know what we're going to talk about today.
I don't either.
I'm still here
We
to hang
never
out.
do.
Yeah.
And yet we
I'm
have to
still
end it
showing
with-
up.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, we were talking before we started recording about public speaking, and I kind of want to update everybody who's listening because we are in a new space. We're on
Yeah.
YouTube now,
Yeah.
like consistently. There's cameras everywhere. You can look at this camera.
So guys, don't
who's
do
looking
anything
right
weird.
at you.
Don't do anything weird.
Right, don't do anything weird. But for those who are new, maybe to BGP, where's the bathroom? Is
Yeah, that way, that way.
Yeah, okay, great. Tell a
Y'all are
little
weird.
bit about what you do, where you've been, how we met, and where you started.
Yeah, so I am the Chief Encouragement Officer at Compete Every Day.
Yeah.
Positivity.
My optimism. I don't like positivity.
My bad, bro.
Oh,
We'll
I
talk
like
about it.
Toxic positivity.
Yes, that's
toxic.
That's why.
You're blind to anything
Okay.
that could potentially happen. You're not a realist.
There's a lot of that, and it's everywhere, along with manifestations and everything else.
Oh
So
my God, I manifested my whole life. What are you talking
Don't crush
about?
my dreams.
I'm not going to crush it. I'm just going to add a little reality to make it more effective.
I will just give it that
Decide
realistic
if I want
spin.
to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my work, boiled down in a nutshell, is I encourage, empower, and equip people to show up and compete every day for whatever their victory is.
Yeah.
So it could be a fitness goal, could be a career goal, whatever that is. I talk about ways that we can improve our mindset and daily processes to succeed. And
Yeah.
so now, it's April 10th. Next month will be 10 years in business.
Nice.
And I'm wearing your shirt.
Yeah, so
normally
started
I do, so
slinging
sorry.
tees. It's okay. I know you have them. For those
who are
listening.
watching, and I'm looking right at the camera. This is Compete Every Day. This is not sponsored, by the way. He did not pay me to do this. I actually bought this shirt. Wink, wink.
I get the Flex Friday pictures. Yeah,
Yeah.
you can see 'em. Yeah, I mean, it'll
But
have been.
this is essentially
This
this is a newer shirt, but
Yeah.
this is just essentially where you started.
Yeah, slinging tees out of the back of my car 10
So
years
cool.
ago.
Slanging.
And then about 5-6 years ago, started getting asked to go speak to companies. Obviously, I'm a leadership development junkie, personal development, psychology junkie. And so I just started learning more about how to help people and
Yeah.
teams. And so now the last 3 years, even with COVID, I speak full time.
You're an author?
I'm an author. Have a
I
book
was going
came
to
out
say,
last
let's make
year.
sure we drop that book because it is a good one.
Thank you. And so, so right now, speaking is full time, do the apparel and then the
Yeah.
book and starting book 2 and get
Ooh.
along the way.
Can we
Yeah.
know about book 2?
Yeah, so people listening that might have heard me talk about before actually changed. So I have like 7 books outlined in terms of what's the title, what's the key takeaway, some ideas for it. And I was focused on building one around cultures. And I still am. I'm giving a talk next week in Florida with a team, and it's all about the importance of developing me and we in order to be successful. So, but me is broken down to the internal side. So what do you focus from a purpose, vision standpoint, self-talk? Third part is the challenge as accepted. Accepting challenges, accepting adversity is part of growth. The external side of me is your relationships and coachability being key to developing me. And then once you develop me, you can contribute to a we, and that's focused on the standards we have and set, and the stories we tell, which the stories tie in everything of the stories we tell ourselves, the stories that our company tells us. And so that creates the winning cultures and winning teams. So that's book 3 now. It was supposed to be book 2. I've decided to roll it out as this keynote. I want to test it, see what works, see what doesn't before I write it.
Yeah.
Book 2 is called Touch the Line. It's kind of a follow-up from the first
immediately
book.
made me think of sprints.
It is,
Yeah.
exactly. And the reason being
Touch
is
the line, don't cheat.
there's a really
Don't
good
short side
illustration,
yourself.
of guys that run. There's a picture on Instagram, and it's essentially guys running sprints, and one guy stops about a half a foot short and everybody else touches it. And that subtle difference, that subtle thing of making sure I go to or past the line adds up over time in every area of a life of, do we choose just good enough to get by, or do we choose to do our best? And so that book is built to compound on top of compete every day. And then the book 3 will be, how do you take both of those and then apply it in a career standpoint to impact and influence the people you work with.
I love it.
So I've got kind of the stages, and it's all designed around growing that speaking audience of saying, how can I help groups more? But it has to start with the individual first. And if people can take that mindset, then we can build on it, and then they can add value.
Your book really, was it in the middle of COVID when I bought those and rolled them out to my team?
It had to be. So the book came out technically June 1st, and we still in the middle of COVID.
So it was
3 weeks to slow the spread.
Traffic says otherwise, but I after I read the book, I was like, oh my God, my team needs this. So I reached out to you and I'm like, I need about 10 copies or whatever it was. And I actually went to his house, picked him up, and then kind of built a training around each chapter of your book and then delivered it to my team.
How did that go?
We had a record year last year.
Oh, that's what's up.
We did not qualify for the second round of PPP because we had such a great year.
Ooh,
yeah.
That's good.
Yes.
I'm curious to know your outline for that training for the book, because I did the exact same thing, picked him up at his house and everything. The problem that I had was, you can't, this is what I was going to ask you your opinion on from writing the book, is like, you can't make people want to change.
Well, you can't, but I think the difference is when you identify individuals on your team who don't want to change, those are the ones who don't get to stay. So you can only...
Nick Saban, his whole point when he talks at Alabama, the point is getting the right people on the bus in the right seats and getting the wrong people off.
That's exactly right.
Because average people don't like high achievers.
Yeah.
And high achievers don't like...
bar for everybody.
And let me ask you this. What is your position on the org chart at work?
I'm sales, so I'm not management, not leadership. She's the boss.
Right.
So let me say, there's also 2 different ways of going about the training and implementing of where it's coming from.
Yeah.
Probably influences a little bit of the effectiveness. Not saying your way wasn't effective, but from outlining when it's coming culturally throughout an entire organization. That's why if there's a disconnect between the top or the top tier, your company will never survive because these people get to do what they want. And then everybody else is supposed to live up to a standard.
Right.
And you can't have it. I've seen it firsthand in work experiences. That's why I get really excited when it's a VP or an owner that's like, how do we do this? How can we implement it? How can we, like, I've got a construction client. We did a keynote for their leadership team 2 weeks ago. They've already been like, how can we do a leadership development program with future leaders in our company for this? And so when you hear that, you know, okay, they know the standard. This meets the standard. They want help training up to that versus the position you've been in. I know a ton of other customers who have done the same. They bought 10 to 15 copies trying to spread it. Some has worked, some haven't because it's not coming from the boss or somebody in that's like, you really should invest in reading this. Here's why. The people that are in that leadership position, another guy in a staffing company locally did the same thing, bought everybody a copy in the book. They did book club reading through it. He's implemented it, which I think has helped spur everyone else too. So that's where that disconnect goes, but there's still opportunity. It's probably a longer process if you're not in that same position. And so it's just, how do you keep reinforcing the messages, which I know you do as you live.
That's essentially what I had to do, right? Because it's like, even though I'm not leadership, I do see myself in this organization becoming leadership one day. So if you want the job, you have to do the job before you get the job, right? So I've read your book 3 times now, but I just started doing it and then leading by example. Right. And then my example is then now making an impact on other people to do the same thing in return. Like similar to Jocko's book, Extreme Ownership. Like I live by that motto every single day. If I mess up, if I make a mistake, even if I don't make a mistake, and it had anything to do with me, I completely own it. I'm like, that was me. I did it. It's my fault. Ultimately, it's my fault. That was something that I should have checked before it happened. So it's on me. Which then in turn empowers others to own their own mistakes and to come out and be like, that's my fault. It's my fault too.
It becomes a cultural norm where people are like, okay,
as opposed
not
to,
okay.
As opposed to being defensive when they make a mistake or completely pretending like it wasn't their fault.
Right. Well, and what that example creates, it's blending Jocko with what Brene Brown talks about from the vulnerability standpoint of saying it's okay to mess up.
Yes.
If you haven't read the book Culture Code by Daniel Coyle, fascinating read.
haven't.
And because he looks at winning teams, and he looks at Navy SEALs, and he looks at Pixar, and Pixar is interesting because everybody knows the first draft is going to suck. But when you walk in, like, you've worked hard at this, and then they tear it to shreds.
Right.
But they understand this is how we make it better.
Yeah. Right.
And we're attacking this, not you.
Right.
And they understand it's okay to be vulnerable in those spaces. And that's really hard for most people because, one, they don't have
all tied to our work.
Yeah.
We see our identity in our work is a big one. We don't understand the power of a culture or space where it's okay to take risk because we've been taught all our lives, don't do anything to stand out, don't do anything to stand out. And if you get in trouble, you go stand in the corner, you go to the principal's office versus understanding, like, sometimes, like, you have to try, you're going to have to try new things, you're going to figure it out. And if you have an environment where it's like, we want you to take safe, calculated risk, and if they don't work, let's talk about why they don't work. Let's talk about how we improve. That helps someone get better in their career versus here's your cog, go put it in the wheel.
Yes.
And so that's where the environments are not set up for most people to do that. And so they also don't have the relationship.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say the biggest key is from management and ownership to create the relationship of investing in the individual. And so that's when
that stems from fear too. Like, we're all afraid to, buck the system and change things because if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah. Well, and the ownership, it's risky to invest in relationships with your staff. You invest in their development. What if they leave? Flip side, we've talked about before. What if they stay and they suck? Right. And so, like, my group in Florida I work with, they've got 38 staff, PT staff. We did a workshop in September with them. It's 3 hours. But what I've done additionally is I will talk to the owner once or twice a month and be like, hey, read this, think this is very beneficial. Yeah. Because what I want is, as I'm teaching them, and I already know the owners are heavily invested in their development, but I want to be able to send them stuff to say, hey, consider this. Or have you ever talked about, like, how do you get feedback as a boss? Yeah. Like, how's your team? And, well, actually, I haven't thought about that. And I'm cool. Let's talk about that.
I don't get feedback because they're too scared to talk to me.
Right. And so my buddy Matt that runs Kid Strong, he left. He makes all of his employees give him feedback. He trains them to and says, I will fire you if you do not give me feedback. I need you to tell me where I can improve. Word. And he said once they get to where they trust him, they trust the atmosphere that I'm trying to get better, I want you to help me. He said it's a whole different dynamic, and it's amazing. Adam Grant talks about this, where I think it's Adam Grant, where he said he will give and ask people on a scale of 1 to 10, how good am I doing my job? Or how good did I help you with this? Right. And he said, if you ask them, am I doing a good job? Everybody's like, yeah, great. If you give them a scale of 1 to 10, they'll be like, oh, an 8.
Right, so awesome. What gets me to a 10?
How can I go from an 8 to a 10? Then they give you more feedback because it takes this idea of, oh my God, they're going to get on to me. Yeah. So it's all around trying to develop that in the leaders within an organization, which can then filter out. So
what the challenge is, though, and I hate to interrupt, but I have to or lose my thought. I've done that, where you sit everybody down, whether it's collectively or individually, and you ask, honestly, for your own personal report card so you can find out what you're missing. Yeah. It's taking that knowledge and that information and then implementing it. Yes. Yeah. Or identifying things that sometimes you're going to have things they don't like, that it's just the way it is. Yeah. Like, there's nothing I can do.
Shapiro being non-emotional.
No, I can work on that. No, that's something I actually need to work on. No, not that, but thank you. Okay, you're welcome. But there are things that you just, it is what it is.
You can't. And that's part of being a leader, though, as well as you deciphering what can be implemented, what can't, and then communicating, listen, right now this can't be, versus I heard you, I'm going to ignore you.
And that's the tough part, is identifying the thing that they're right. Yeah. Dang, that needs to change, or that needs to shift, whatever it is, and then doing it.
Can you provide an example?
No, I knew you were going to ask me that.
Think on the example, because what I want to say is that same thing outside of work is crucial with our ability to be coached to get better, whether that's with a mentor, whether with a hired coach, whether with a friend that's willing to challenge us.
Shapiro has a spiritual guru now. You can take that back to your guru.
I mean, it's the same thing of, like, if you're challenged and you know you need to do it, and your friend's like, if April's like, you got to start doing this. You tell me this. You want to do this.
I think it's around the empathy thing. A collective, I think, not complaint, but challenge that everyone shared was that you're really, really nice until you're not. And so I think it's learning, like, I'm almost like a little volcano, and so I can take a lot. But I never lose my temper, so I don't want to paint that picture. That's not what it is.
Yeah.
But I snap. Like, I'll have a quick thing, and then, I'll put you in your place real fast, and you're like, what just happened? Which is not cool. And
do you do that with your relationship as well?
Brad.
Oh, for sure. More there than anywhere. Are you kidding?
So
that's where it started, folks.
So the reason I ask is usually when we're that way, we're that way in all areas of life.
Yeah,
so then it's our personal challenge to say, how do I?
It is a personal challenge, faux show.
But you're aware of it, which is the first key. Self-awareness. Most people don't realize those blind spots. You're actively talking about it means you're aware and you're working toward it.
Yeah.
You know this is an area to step up. So that's just growth. That is, I'm going to do it wrong. I'm going to keep messing up, but I'm continually trying to reframe, okay, how do I have that pause before I have that snap? How do I maintain a little bit more of a spectrum on my emotional scale before I get to that point?
Right.
Where do I notice I'm snapping in terms of what specific conversations?
Usually when somebody tells me no.
I mean, is it at the end of the week?
Me.
Is it at the end of a day?
Yeah.
Is it because a lot
Are
of
you hungry? Do you need a nap?
Well,
do you
Usually
need to
because somebody
reassess?
told me no. I'm just kidding.
Are you an only child too?
No.
I am. I can say that. That's why.
I'm not. No.
Yeah, so it's funny that you bring that up though, because it's not for me. Let's say Matt really hates when I yell.
Yeah.
He just does not respond well to yelling. So for me, I have to check myself and be like, all right, what am I doing in this moment? Like, okay, I feel myself almost getting to the point where I want to yell or raise my voice or whatever. And he just shuts down as far as communication when I start yelling.
I'm kind of that way too. If somebody starts yelling, I'm out. I check out.
And like, it's not even yelling. It's like a raising of the voice. Like I'm not like screaming at him, but it's like
it's the Shapiro snap.
heightened conversation, right? So it's like, okay, check myself, reevaluate, bring my voice down, make it a point to be even quieter than I was before, so that I can't be misconstrued as yelling, because I'm a very loud and boisterous person that even just speaking loudly can be misconstrued as yelling. But that's something that I've been having to work on, like personally. And while it doesn't necessarily happen with the people that I work with, like I can be pretty intense at times. And like if they say like, hey man, like, are you okay or whatever, I'll be like, yeah, man, I'm good.
Well, you're a really strong personality.
Yeah.
In a good way.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I think.
Not for everybody though.
I love it.
That's okay. I'm not for everybody.
I'm a fan.
But
yeah, so I did try with that, and you're right. It absolutely has to come from leadership. And I think that it would be good if, like, let's say, my team hits a certain goal, to bring you in and be like, how do we implement this? Because I do know that I have the ear of my CEO, which is really nice, because I feel like I have a lot more buy-in knowing that I have that, but I've built that.
I'm about to say, you built that relationship.
Yeah, that's right.
So like knowing that I have that and that I'm continuing to build that and like make more of a partnership with the leadership in my company, like that, bringing that in and then implementing that change. Because I think the struggle for me too is that I wasn't there very long before I tried to implement this program or this book club or
and
whatever.
You haven't built the trust.
I don't have any buy-in.
Yeah.
They're like, who do you think you are?
Yeah.
Who are you?
And that's the hardest part. And that's that's a challenge as a speaker from a very basic level when you get on stage of, well, why the hell should we care what you have to say?
Why do I care what you're saying?
So you have to connect at the same time, like be a little vulnerable to share. And so it's an ongoing one. And that's what happens to a lot of times when new ownership, new management comes into a company, is they immediately start changing everything of telling you what I'm going to make you do, how we're going to do things, versus let me sit down and talk to everybody.
What can I
There's
do?
a book, Turn the Ship Around. Have you ever read that?
No.
And that's the whole thing is about that. Like, you can't just go in. You can't turn a ship around.
Guns blazing.
Yeah.
Yes, you can't. You gotta give it 90 days of just observation. Assuming that senior leadership knows that's what you're doing and doesn't think that you're not.
But it's conversations. How do we build relationships with people? Because
what's working? What's not working?
Yeah, if you can build the relationship, you can help the individual. If you're in a management position and watching this, if the people that report to you don't believe you have any investment in their relationship, if they know you don't know what they actually want to do with their career or why they come to this job, they don't really care what you have to say or where you're going to go. Like most people just want to know, I belong to something that wants me to be here. And I know that showing up every day is going to help me get to where I want to go, whether it's me saving away money because I want to pay for a kid to go to school, or because I have an eye on a corner office that I want one day because I want that power position. Once we know that, awesome. Let's help you get there. Then people are in. Clint Pulver, I had him on our podcast. He's a speaker and drum guy. He's a really cool story. He wrote a book called I Love It Here, and they did a similar undercover boss type experiment because he looks like a 21-year-old guy in his probably late 30s, early 40s.
Wow.
And they would go talk to all these companies of why people stay, why people leave. And what he talked about in his book is people stay if the manager is a mentor, and it's a mentor type relationship. And that manager doesn't have to be the best salesperson. They may not even be the best, individual in your company, but they are the absolute best at connecting the employee with where they need to go, with being a part of the company, and people will stay for that person through hell and high water. And so it's all about the relationship, which is anything. I mean, you get a goal that you want to go after. If you're a fitness trainer, you build the relationship. The relationship keeps you coming back. Having a friend that's going to meet you at the gym or practice sales calls with you. It's all about that relationship.
Yep, I love that.
Me too.
So true.
It's so true. I mean, people that, for my company, he has 2 offices. So he has Dallas and San Antonio. And people in San Antonio, I mean, the average tenure there is like 8+ years, the most being like 14, 15, 16, 20. Like he's been in business for 20. This year will be our 20th anniversary. But our 20th year in business. I mean, 14 years, that speaks volumes that someone would stay, especially in this industry, that somebody would stay that long.
I've only had in my 25-year career 2 leaders that were true mentors. One was my very first big kid job here in Dallas. I was working for Transamerica, real estate tax firm. Sherm Gardner, I don't even think he's still alive anymore, but he was,
shout out Sherm.
Shout out Sherm.
Rest in peace, Sherm.
Yep. He was such a cool guy because I was non-degreed at the time. I had really no experience, and he believed in me, gave me an opportunity, but made me work for it.
Yeah.
If I gave him an email that had any grammatical errors, he would print it. He would pull out his red pen,
circle it,
mark it up, embarrass the hell out of me, and say, try again.
Right.
And he did that so many times. Sent me even to like a Stephen Covey grammar class type thing. It was that bad, y'all. That bad.
So let me ask you though.
But now, it made a difference in my...
Oh my gosh.
But I was about to say, you talking about him means that you knew how much he wanted you to get better.
Oh, for sure.
So let me ask you, because I'm fascinated by this part, and I asked somebody the other day on our podcast.
Yeah.
Getting embarrassed, having to redo stuff, frustrating. What made you stick with it? Because not everybody sticks with it because they have short-term vision versus a long-term.
I appreciated the fact that he was real with me.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was surrounded by people who were scared to be real and scared to embarrass you in a nurturing way.
Yeah.
Like you can't just embarrass people, right, and expect them to stay. But if it's in a nurturing manner and you know that they're looking out for you and they just want you to be better, then you stick with it. It's education at the end of the day. And I think maybe that the answer to that question is I'm an infinite learner. Is that how you say that? Like I'm always craving knowledge. I always want to be better. So that worked for me. Well, that may not work for everybody.
It may not, but it should, because I think the reason it doesn't work for most people is there's not a relationship with the person that's teaching.
I really respected him a great deal. Yeah.
There's a lack of respect. And you don't even have to have the buddy-buddy relationship, but you have the respect because they have the experience, they have the competence, they've done the work, so you assume on that side. And then as well as you saw, like, I need to do this.
I know what it is. I know how to answer your question. He saw something in me that I think nobody else did at the time. I was a young single mom, and I think
2 kids.
I think that was my image to most people. It's just, here's a stupid girl who makes stupid decisions. He didn't see that. He saw my intelligence. He saw my capability. He saw my potential. And so that I bought into, and that I'm like, I'll stick around for as long as I have to stick around because this guy's going to invest in me. Yeah.
Which is the one opportunity that anyone listening, watching this has, is to see potential in someone else, because most of us have pretty poor self-confidence. Yeah. And we probably tell ourselves stories in our head. Mm-hmm. And so who do you know that you can help tell a different story to and use that to make an impact? And that at the end of the day is like, he took a shot on you because he saw something, but he was like, I'm going to invest in this person because I believe in it. If they can't handle the challenge, then we'll find somebody else I can invest in. But if they're willing to step up, we can make them better. And that's what I think more people need, is just somebody to be like, I think you can do it. Let's figure out if you can. I'm going to be tough on you, but I'm being tough because I want you to get to here.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you just said, I think you can do it. But the question is, do they think they can?
Right.
Because they have to think they can.
Yes.
And believe in themselves.
But a lot of time that's reinforced by how we talk to them.
Oh, that's
it's
fair.
the importance of praising effort over and over and over again, of continuing to say, do these right things, keep doing these right things. I love how you bring your energy to the office. I love how you're working this. I love and appreciate how you're taking this feedback and working to improve. Praising the things that are 100% in their control, especially in a position, staffing, sales, where you don't control the whole outcome.
Right. Yeah.
You do control how you show up and do everything that's within your control. And the more we praise that, the more confidence we can build into people because they're building their competence. They understand that if I keep showing up, if I keep hammering away, if these are the things that I'm being praised for, these are the things Kim finds important, finds value in, I'm going to keep showing up and doing this. And if you're praising the things that get the job done eventually, they're going to take value in that.
Yeah.
It's funny too. Like I was actually having this conversation with my coworker the other day, and he's reading 12 Rules for Life by Jordan Peterson, and
such a good book.
And Jordan Peterson recently has, come back into the podcast space. It's basically all he can do right now. But he just talked about like how many people he didn't even realize, like how many people just lacked basic encouragement.
Yeah.
Like he's broken down on his show and just cried because so many people just lack that general encouragement. And when you think about like my first environment for staffing and sales in general, and before that I worked in restaurants, and they're not always super kind to the employees that work in a restaurant, but like if I would have stayed for that organization working for that individual, like I don't even know where I would be today. But the difference is like, and I'm having this conversation with my colleague, he's does the same thing that I do, and I looked at him just as a human, and I was just like, it's so important. And like, I just looked at him and I was like, and every time I look at him, which I won't say his name, but I doubt he would listen to this anyway, but he lacks basic encouragement. Because if you think about it, like who's encouraging you all the time? Like we're all our own like people
we're
self-critic.
Speak worse to themselves than they would to another human.
But and on that too, like if your spouse isn't super supportive, like if your kids aren't super supportive, which everybody's living their own life and doing their own thing, right? But like how many times a day can you remember purposely giving someone else encouragement or encouraging
Well,
that?
that's why it's so important, and I think you would agree, is that's why it's got to come from within, and it's got to come from you. You have to be your number one advocate.
But even still,
because you can't be like the people on the outside aren't always going to be the ones who are going to feed you.
But even still, like, I think it's psychology because yes, you definitely have to be your own advocate. You have to believe in yourself. But if you're getting external influences who are like beating down on you all the time, me, for example, you're a terrible mom, your kid's failing, you're not good at your job, you're not good at this, blah, blah, blah. If that was the external feedback that I was getting, I wouldn't be here. I would not be here. But I choose to bring in and surround myself with positive people who fill my bucket.
I would agree with that, yes.
So it's like, but...
So we're back to the keynote of internal me, self-talk.
Yeah.
New book out in January called Chatter by a guy named Ethan Cross. I'm getting ready to crack it open. But it talks about internal self-talk, how you improve it. Because most people can't create new habits, new lifestyles, new choices because they're married to their past self and what their internal critic says.
Yeah.
The more distance you can create between the decisions you made yesterday and who you are today, the more likely you are to improve your life.
And what you did 5 years ago?
Yeah. So the self-talk's a big one, as well as externally, who you surround yourself with, being intentional about that. The problem is, the question I always get is, well, I'm surrounded by all these negative people. Who am I supposed to go hang out with? How do I find these people? The first thing you have to do is be more interested and less interesting. You have to be interested in people and start focus on.
Yes.
Then as you learn about them, you can start to, okay, these are people I want to identify with. These are not. So that's kind of that first step. And at the same time, it's being more of that person. It's learning to train your focus, train your attention to
be the person you want to attract. I mean, if you want like-minded people, you've got to kind of become
that.
Yeah.
Well, you've got to train your focus on what you consume.
Yeah.
You can't control everything you're going to hear.
Yeah.
You can control everything you're going to take to heart
And say.
And so if you think about it from a sports perspective, if you're on the basketball court,
Why am I not surprised
fans
at all?
are.
Not even a little bit.
That's my world. I talk sports.
This is hard.
Fans are on, or basketball players are on the court.
Yeah.
Fans are yelling things from the stands, some good, some hateful. Coaches are yelling plays and things from the sidelines to teammates and you. Teammates are yelling things to each other and
Basically
you.
chaos.
Opponents are talking trash. There's all sorts of noise, but a player on the court knows I'm hearing all of this. I'm filtering out everything except these voices I need to hear and take into heart.
Yeah.
And so that's how we kind of have to approach life. And it's not easy. And there's a ton of negativity that we're going to consume on a daily basis.
Right.
And if our closest relationships are, it makes it even harder.
Right.
But that also comes back to understanding who we are, what we're trying to do, where we're trying to go, and in being intentional with who we surround ourselves with. And
So self-evaluation, self-awareness.
Yeah.
self-awareness
I
and
love
putting
that.
the focus on someone else, because we feel more anxiety, more stress, more anger, more negativity when we worry about how we feel
Yeah.
versus how can I show up and help you
How can
today.
I serve
Yeah.
you?
So true.
We talked about that last episode too that we just recorded, but I was going to say something and now I forgot.
I'm sorry.
That was quick.
Way to go.
Jordan
You're way too
Peterson,
young for that.
basketball. Do you have a basketball analogy?
Wow.
Yes.
That was good.
So the basketball, it's not even an analogy. It's like a GIF that where the kid is like walking down the court and his head is down and his friend comes in.
Oh,
and
yeah, the
saves him and
UCLA
pushes him.
player. You want to hear something really embarrassing? I'll
Have you seen
happily-
that? Have you seen that?
So it
Okay,
says I
so-
want these kind of teammates. These are the only kind of teammates I want. The kid had missed a shot or something.
And he's walking, his head's down, he looks...
Body language is
And he
slumped.
doesn't even look like bummed. He just looks like a lot of us walk
Yeah.
around every day. And his teammate walks up beside him. And this teammate this is such a fucking perfect, effing perfect clip because his teammate is shorter than him. And I don't know if he's as gifted as him, but he's shorter than him.
Yeah.
And in basketball, your height is pretty important.
Yeah.
And he walks up beside him and he makes it a point to pick his head up. Like, bro, pick
His
your
chin
head
up. He got his head
Pick
under
your
his chin.
up.
His
Like,
chin. Like, we're up. We're
yep,
focused. Is
we're
behind
good.
you.
You're good.
I love it.
Yes, it's so good. I'll
That
find it
gives
and
me
send it to you.
goosebumps.
It's an incredible
Same.
illustration.
I got goosebumps.
I saw it once briefly and tried to use it in a talk, and I thought it was UCLA women's. And I said that and I literally am telling the
Grounded.
illustration, and I'm like,
They're boys.
I was like, and one of the student athletes in the audience is like, oh,
Sorry,
that
bro,
was
that
the
was
dudes,
dudes.
that was the guys' team, and I was like, oh,
Oopsie.
my bad.
Good job.
I was like, oh,
go, Jake.
totally messed this one, and I still think about that like 4 years later.
It's so
You're
good.
like, guys, focus on the message.
But I have to laugh about it now. I'm like, okay, mess that one up. Don't ever pull anything out of your tail in the middle of the stage thinking, oh, this is a good time for this.
Well, and I
It's
think
not.
that like it's very easy going back to the story and the person that I'm talking about. It's very easy for us to say as three extroverts, and you're a little bit of an introverted extrovert, which I kind of am too. Like I have to recharge my batteries alone, or with my person,
Yeah.
But this individual that I'm thinking about, and I think that this is a good example for a lot of other people too, because a lot of other people don't know how to necessarily get there, right? Like starting over, really reevaluating the people that are in your circle. Like for this individual, I don't know. I'm just going to call him out, John Twitchell. I'm talking about you, buddy. But not bad. It's not bad. It's not calling him out. It's like it's using him as an example. But it's like he went through some really traumatic things. Like he's divorced. He has 2 kids that are grown. Both of his parents just died last year, and he went through COVID. And work has been kind of a struggle for him too. And it's just like this combination of things. And now that he's reading this book, like I'm gonna tell him that I talked about him on my podcast. He's
He's going to listen, and then he's going to check out Compete Every Day and
He
know
would
exactly
love it.
where to
he
start.
has the book. He's on my
okay.
team. Yeah.
Love it. I love it.
What I'm going to tell you about him, and just a question to ask him, is how do you start your day?
That's a good question.
Because when life is beating you completely down, it's super easy to allow your focus and your thoughts to run on everything that happened last year.
Yeah.
How I'm feeling today.
Yes.
What am I worried about tomorrow? How am
Yeah.
I going to pay this?
Yeah.
Versus grounding yourself in the moment
Yeah.
and saying, what's within my
Right.
control today? What are the 3 things I can do to improve my
And the
career,
one thing
my
that-
mind, and my kids?
And the
Yeah.
one thing that he does really, really well is he remains optimistic. I wouldn't say positive because again, it's not that like toxic positivity, but he, any opportunity that he brings in, he's genuinely excited. He's very passionate about what he does. And I think that the example here, I want to say euphemism, but I think that's wrong. For the example or the case that I'm talking about is for people that are probably struggling. He's a little bit older. I think he just turned 51. And, when you consider starting over or reevaluating everything in your life, like, reading this book for him, I can see when he comes in every day and he wants to talk to me about it, he lights up.
Oh, that's great.
And like, I will listen to him talk about it for an hour. Probably not best for business, but like I'll listen to him talk about it for an hour because I don't know if he has somebody to talk to about that. And like this, it makes me want to cry. But like, imagine how many people are struggling with that, and especially with COVID. Like, imagine if that was my life, how terrible would that be? And like all the people. I'm such a bleeding heart, but
you are such an empath. I'm such an empath.
Me.
I need some of it.
We're the complete opposites. You're like,
that's why the lockdowns have been a terrible thing.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's like for all the people, and I think this is why Jordan Peterson gets so emotionally talks about it, because it's like, if I couldn't even imagine if that were my life or if that was one of my loved ones' lives and I didn't even know about it and I wasn't doing something to help, because I am 100% a helper. Like if that guy wants to come in and talk about Jordan Peterson's second rule for life, I'm like, bring it on, man. What's up, Twitchell? What you got? Like, let's go. Let's talk about it.
The American Psychological Association
reported
over the last 14 months, 74% of Americans have listed they're in a worse mental health state than they've ever been. They're sadder. This is the worst part of their life. 74%. And so you think about, there's a sports psychologist, Dr. Kevin Elko, works with Alabama and a ton of big programs. He always closes his talks with "Go be a blessing to someone today."
Yeah.
And it's awesome because of that opportunity. I mean, who can you just sit and listen to? I mean, people are craving encouragement.
Yeah.
And most people are so caught up in their own mess that they don't take the time to be like, how can I just encourage someone else?
Yeah.
Because we're selfish people by nature.
Yeah.
We want to take care of ourselves.
You're really good at that too. Like you'll send me a DM or a text and be like, what can I do for you? Or how can I serve you? Or how can I help you to be your best self or whatever, which is super impactful, like probably more than you think.
Aww.
Well, I will admit, I went to happy hour last week with a buddy and he was asking me about that. And cause we'll go have lunch. And he was like, for the first, I don't know, 6 times we would grab lunch once a month, he would walk away and be like, I freaking suck. He was like, I talked for an hour.
What am I doing?
I didn't ask Jake anything. Jake just kept asking me questions. And he asked me about that. And I said, I found it's easier for me to fight procrastination, internal demons, bad habits, if I get out of my own head. I said, because if I have too much time on my hands or just create space, I'm going to just go off the rails. And I said, I found the best way for me to show up and compete is to say, how can I just turn the attention elsewhere and say, who can I help? Who can I encourage? Who do I know that is going through shit that I can just check in on? Because life sucks and it's hard and it's challenging and most people think they're in it all by themselves and really all they need is just someone to reach out and say hi. And so that's why this month for Competitor Nation, our challenge last month was a physical one. This one's a relational. I said, pick up the phone one day or one time a day all month long, call somebody.
I love
Spend
that. 10
10 minutes on the phone. Just say, how are you doing? How can I help you? How can I support you? We did it last year and it was amazing the feedback we got. And you get people in there, they're like, oh, I was here for the workout challenge. I'm like, step up and do this. Quit being lazy. Like it's not about just what you work out. Like people need this because they're craving just to be seen. And Zoom sucks. Language for the last year has been social distancing, and that's terrible. It should be physical distancing.
Right.
You still need to be social and engaged, and we just forget it.
That's a good point.
I love that.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know. Look at us.
Check. 1:30. How are we on time?
I don't know. I don't even know when we started.
I think we started at 12:45.
I think we did too. So we got
10 more minutes. Is that good, everybody?
Let's talk. Let's chat.
Cool.
I know.
How can we help you today?
How can
we help you, Shapiro?
Oh, me? Okay.
Who wants to be on the coaching seat?
She does right here.
I don't care. You guys can help me. I don't care. Use me as an example.
So April is, she just purchased a home with her honey.
Yeah, that's exciting.
Honey.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm really proud of you.
Thanks.
You've had a lot of changes in the last year.
No shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really exciting.
I've had a lot of changes since I've known you, which is like
so
3 years.
Yeah, same. Oh, we must have met you around this. Well, no, 4 years. I've known you 4.
Yeah.
So yeah, I actually hired April. I think you know that story. And she was newly single mom, right? Or no, you were.
I was with Brad
in a second, relationship. Post divorce, that wasn't awesome.
Ideal.
Wasn't encouraging. Wasn't ideal. There we go.
I was not competing every day in that relationship.
Yeah, and there was just a lot. There was a lot of challenges. There was a lot of negativity. But that's multiple directions.
The beauty of that is that's how we got here.
That is so true.
Because you and I would just have these amazing conversations every day about all the struggles in my hot mess life.
And now there's no mess at all.
And I was like, we should have a podcast.
Yeah.
And you were like, what's a podcast? What are we
This
doing
happened,
there?
Jake. I didn't even know it. I mean, I knew, but I didn't know.
Yeah.
And then I wound up being the one who had to figure out all the technical stuff, and I didn't even know what the hell one was.
I mean,
So
y'all still have a
amazing.
fancier setup than I do, which is...
Well, this is the new fancy.
Well, I'm talking about the OG setup was pretty fancy when I
it was
walked in.
pretty
I was like,
fancy
look
too.
at all these.
This is what happens when you don't know what you're doing. You're like, oh, I guess you have to have all the things.
I actually, I've got somebody I'm going to send your way. There's a fitness influencer that's getting ready to launch a podcast. She's a big Barstool fan of Call Her Daddy,
Okay.
Call Me Daddy or whatever.
Call Her
they're,
Daddy,
yeah. And her and one of her friends are kind of talking on the fitness side with
Yeah.
like balance of life. And
Yeah.
she's like, yeah, we don't know what we're doing. I was like, I know two people you should talk to that they do a really good show where the banter's back and forth with guests.
We
and
would
so,
love to.
So I was like, I'm going to send them your way.
Heck yes.
I know. I love it when people are like, so what do you do? How do you do it? I'm like, Google? Like, Google's good.
Dr.
You
Google.
you do it wrong. You, buy
do
a bunch. I mean, I have so much equipment in my house that I didn't end up using
Fail.
the way I
and
wanted.
Fail,
Yeah.
and you fail again.
We have all of it
Just
still.
keep getting
Yeah.
better. You just figure it out. You watch videos, you
You do.
test, you say this works, this doesn't. I have a really nice mic.
Yeah.
Don't use it that much. I love my little Bluetooth one.
You know,
Like,
the number one thing I think is just don't overthink it.
Yeah.
I think
Just
so
do it.
people want it to be perfect, or they want to launch this perfectly polished, beautiful thing. If you wait to do that, you're never
gonna
going to
start.
do it.
Yeah.
and they think you're going to get rich instantly and everybody's
Oh
going
my
to
God,
come.
I'm so
You know
rich. What are you
Don't
talking about?
do it for money, honestly.
you can't. You can't do-
Don't do it for money.
You
That
can't do
brings
any
us
side.
to a good point or a good topic, because I actually had a lunch yesterday with my old boss who wants me to come work for him again, and I basically told him no. But he hired somebody and he brought her to lunch and he introduced us and he wanted me to mentor her because I've been in this business now for like 5 going on 6 years, and he was like, she's brand new, never learned, hasn't done anything in staffing before. So he was like, I really just want you to teach her about the business. And I said, I would love to. I would absolutely love to do that. So we go to lunch and we start talking about everything. And I think this could go for pretty much anything in life. Like, you have to realize, especially when you're working with people, but I mean, in sales, you're working with people all the time, but like, you can't do it for money.
Right.
Ever. Like, ever. The money will come, right? But and of course your intention has to be for the business.
Yeah.
But like, building relationships is so much more impactful than just going after the dollar.
But I will say, yes, I 100% agree with
says,
that.
no, I need money.
Well, in
My
all,
staff, close your ears.
in all transparency, though, I do think you
It's
need to be motivated by that. I think it needs to be something that
I disagree
Yeah.
in our business, because here's the thing. If I was motivated strictly by money.
no, not strictly by money. I
Right.
think it needs to be, there needs to be a fire in there that's like,
So
Oh,
we
yeah,
got
you
off
need money.
course a little bit because we're talking about our day jobs.
Yeah. We're
We started
about
talking about podcasting
Yeah.
and pursuing a
how'd that
passion.
happen?
But I think that the two go hand
I
in
do.
hand.
I
Yeah.
do. I think there's a little more emphasis needs to be on money from a career standpoint.
Sure.
But I will say the podcasting, the passion, the thing that you really enjoy,
Yeah.
don't do it to go after money.
100%.
Get your reps, focus on building.
Yep.
If you focus on improving, more opportunities come. Money can happen because
Yeah.
you build relationships, you build your network,
Yep.
you do all those things. But most people won't show up and do the recording, do the show for 100 episodes.
Yeah.
If there's 50 people listening, they won't
True.
post on social media after
Right.
5 or 6 times if
Right.
they're getting 5 likes.
Yeah.
They're so
we do.
they're so, but that's the point. They're so short-term focused on how's my ego
Yeah.
versus long-term focused on how's my progress and excellence.
Okay,
It's 'cause it's our therapy.
This is where I agree that should be your day job, but also your hobby. And I'll use me as an
Okay.
example. So why I say that relationships are the most important. So I'll use one.
I will never disagree on
No,
that.
No,
I
I
wouldn't
know.
either.
Okay.
But but the difference is, like, I'll use one situation for an example. I had a client that was hiring for a position, director of HR. The candidate that I subbed to this client ended up not working out. The client ended up being a little bit shady in the practice and just wasn't very transparent about the whole process, right? But I really connected with this candidate. So this candidate, while that candidate had nothing to do with me monetarily, meaning I wasn't going to make any
Yeah.
money off of placing him anywhere, I wasn't going to do anything. Because he and I had connected on such a personal level, we maintained a relationship, a business relationship. And then when he did finally get a job, it came back full circle. And I then in turn made him a client when he landed at another company. Now, if I would have been purely transactional and not really cared about this candidate who did not serve me in that moment, I would have never maintained that relationship, and I would have never made money from it. So because I invested in him personally as somebody who was on the job market and looking for a new career, that relationship came back, and it was pay it forward.
So speaking to that, I hear you on that level. So when you're thinking at a more granular level, totally get it. Yeah. I'm thinking more high level. You are motivated by money. That's why you are driven to be in these higher, more
but you have to be making the relationships with the right people.
You can't 100%.
You can't just be like, I don't really care about making money, so I'm just gonna go make relationships with my friends.
But people like that,
no.
But people like that don't make money.
That's what I'm saying.
And
you have to have the right intention.
The ones that just want to make relationships with my friends,
they don't make money either.
They don't make money because they only care about my social circle and how I look to them. Right. They're going after that for that reason. What I would say is the approach you've talked about is the number one sales approach in the market. It's Bob Berg, the Go-Giver. It's literally looking on how I have something, knowledge, experience, opportunity. How can I help someone else with this that's looking for this? When you take that approach, you sell anything. You build relationship. You may not sell immediately.
Right.
I have people that I was pitching gigs for years before getting an opportunity to go speak. Like how can I help you? How can I serve you? How can I, create, knowing it may come back to me, it may not, but I can help this person set up. That's the main approach for sales, which is 1,000% the opposite of 95% of the LinkedIn spam I get and emails and crap I get of just like, let me word vomit on everything about me, even though I haven't read your profile and actually see that this is what you do or this is what you have.
Yeah.
So taking that approach,
targeted marketing is garbage.
is what you should have regardless. Yeah. If you want to be successful in business, taking the approach, I have a solution to your problem, whether it's X, Y, or Z, let me help you. That helps the bottom line. We're all driven to make money and grow. And I think capitalism is a huge opportunity because the more money you make, the bigger your business or career, the more people you can impact.
That's exactly right.
You can employ people. You can contribute to the community.
Right.
A broke company ain't helping nobody.
No.
A company that's bankrupt ain't helping anybody. But a company that's building, thriving, small businesses especially just create so many more opportunities for people to have jobs. I just think the only way you drive the money in is how do we add value to your life? And that's it. So I think it's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
In terms of side hustle and passions, like just go freaking do it if you want to do it. If you want to start a podcast,
and you have to be, you 100,000% have to be passionate about what it is you're doing because people can spot a fake a mile away.
Yeah. Do you remember what Julian Placino? So when we first decided to do this, we reached out to Julian Placino, which
Pathways
you know who that
to
is.
Success.
Yeah. So he had this pretty successful podcast at the time. I think he had just celebrated his 100th episode at the time.
Yeah.
And so we met him at Hula Hands in Addison. Yep. And we were like, okay, what do we do? Like, how do we get this started? And he's like, best piece of advice I can give you, be consistent. Just keep doing it. No matter what, just keep doing it.
Reps.
Yep.
Bro.
Yep.
Reps.
All about the reps.
And we kept doing it.
Yeah.
And we're still here.
We haven't stopped. Yeah,
I mean, that's
crazy.
the thing. And you like the conversation, we always have amazing conversations, but like we banter better now than we did the first episode, which was episode
now,
12.
Yeah.
And that's the thing.
12?
Was it really?
I don't know. It was top 20, I think.
Wow.
It was back in the day.
Well, thanks for joining us way back then.
But that's the point. I was talking to a guy last night that's a huge Joe Rogan fan, and he's got a tennis podcast.
Their new studio.
And it's so cool.
Pumped.
And he was like, we're on episode, 2025. He was like, I'm a Joe Rogan addict. And I was like, you should go all the way back if you can find it and listen to his first couple of episodes.
Garbage.
And then listen to the one he just did this week with Dan Crenshaw or somebody else. Like, it's a different person interviewing him. I said, as it should be. Like the whole goal.
The evolution.
If you're first, I look back at my first talks and I'm like, that sucked.
Yeah.
Look back at first shirts, those sucked.
And they should.
They should.
As they should. Because if there's no progress, what are you doing,
So
man?
what lessons are we learning here, folks?
I don't know, everything.
Don't give up.
We're
Don't
learning
give up.
all the lessons.
Just
Keep
get
going.
started.
Yeah.
1 million
Don't give a rip
lessons.
about what anybody else thinks.
Yeah.
Focus on how you're going to show up and help somebody else.
I think that the last guest that we had on, he kind of stressed this this mindset or whatever, but he was like, I stopped caring about what people thought about me, and then from there I've just flourished.
Yeah.
Which 100%.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
literally could give.
Why do people not
35
dance at
years old.
weddings? Because they're worried what everybody else is going to say.
People don't dance at
Who has
weddings?
the crappiest time at weddings? The people that stand
don't
on the side
dance.
and don't dance.
I'm like, people don't dance at what? Maybe because I'm so busy dancing to every song that I don't even notice.
But
there
like
are people
everybody gets,
dancing.
it's like anything. Everybody gets a little nervous at parties. Nobody wants the first one. You're, oh my God, what's everybody thinking
But
about?
also you need
We're
that
all thinking about
social lube
ourselves.
of alcohol that makes for good dancing.
So it's if we learn learned to be less victim-minded, more servant-minded, and just stopped caring what other people think. And
I think that's huge.
Yeah,
that's it.
For sure.
Servant-minded, how can you help whomever that may
Which
be?
takes you out of a victim mentality of what's in it for me.
Yes.
Right.
And you just stop caring what other people think.
I think that's the thing that taught me about like sales was like, it can't just be about you. Like it cannot be about you ever at all. And like, yes, you do have to make money. That has to be a priority. But also like in your passions, in your hobby, like you have to think like, how is this filling my bucket? But also this podcast highlights like 100 plus guests and what they're doing and how we can promote you and how we can make you feel better about yourself.
Well, and if you think about every guest that we've ever invited on, it wasn't how they were going to help us. It was like, hey, let us help promote what you're doing.
What are you doing? Talk about yourself.
Other people can hear the goodness that you have to share.
Yes.
It's always been about that, for sure. Mm-hmm. Well, and I like the takeaways too.
I was about to say.
And I learned stuff too.
I started mine just to have conversations with people and learn. I was like, who can I connect with and who can I learn from?
Yeah.
I can't, maybe you're not going to be a mentor to me. Maybe we're not going to be buddy, but I want to learn something from you. So here's a platform. Let's talk.
Yeah.
This podcast, that's what it does for both of us.
Yeah.
It is
100%.
It's an outlet, but it's also educational. Like the things that we have learned about ourselves, about other people, just human nature. It's been a good
and the connections that we've made from that. Like we connect to other people. Like you said, like you would refer a budding or a starting podcast to come to us. Like, again, how can we help you?
Yeah.
We would love to help you.
We just recently got invited. Well, you did really specifically.
We got invited. Mary gave her our information. She emailed me on the Big
Texas
Girl
Women's, is that who it is?
Yeah, she emailed me on the Big Girl Pants Pod email.
Oh, gotcha.
So
gotcha.
Mary told her, hey, I went on their podcast.
Got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So she just addressed the email to me, but it was to us.
But anyway, to speak at Texas Women's University for their, I think their entrepreneurship group.
Yeah.
Is that a word? Did I make that up? On just how to podcast.
Yeah.
Which is kind of fun.
That's
Super
awesome.
cool.
Which is really
So
neat of
pumped.
like college students getting involved.
Yeah.
Jonathan Jones, local speaker guy, really cool guy. Y'all should chat with sometime. He just signed a deal with West Virginia, a couple of schools they teach a podcasting for our college athletes program of like, how do you teach college athletes to start telling their story and talking about it?
That's cool.
Yeah, he's pretty cool.
When are we going to start paying college athletes? That would be a great question.
Man, wouldn't that be?
But don't we
The problem
pay
is-
them through tuition?
Well, I mean, I used to be on that.
But they can't have jobs.
I used to be on that bus of the tuition side until I got a little bit older and started seeing more of it. The problem you run into is most athletic programs, football and men's basketball, some schools women's basketball, fund the entire program. And so if it switches to that route, what you would have happen if it was like only the programs that make money stay, you're going to lose 90% of actual athletic programs. Like soccer programs,
Like
some do.
lacrosse.
Yeah, some don't. I mean,
By
'cause
paying them,
polo.
like if you paid them,
like
you'd
if you
lose?
paid all student athletes. But what I think is beneficial and what has been thrown out is like if you go to a University of Texas game, they're selling jerseys with no name on the back of the quarterback's number or whatever.
Okay.
What I think would be beneficial is all the money that's used on their likeness while they're in school.
Yeah.
They get a commission just like an
for
NFL
sure.
player
No, I
would.
think that would be
but
good.
it goes
Yes.
into a trust that they don't get until they graduate.
Yeah.
So they get the money, whether it's if you're really good, maybe you get $300,000 or $400,000.
Sure.
And it goes to that fund, and you make it when you graduate, and maybe you never play pro, but you're a great
my issue with that, with the fact that they don't get paid, is that they're, and especially if they're on scholarship or they're go to a D1 school, is that they pay your tuition, but how are you supposed to eat?
Oh, they have food stipends and all that kind of stuff. There's tons of that stuff that goes into the guy. They eat for free. They have housing,
meal plans, and all that.
So we're just supposed to not do anything fun or go out with our friends or whatever because the school pays for our food.
No, they get like
they're not allowed to have jobs. Is my issue.
They're not allowed to have jobs, but there are like monthly stipends and things like that. So there is some additional income that's thrown that way.
Yeah.
But yes, I agree. I think on the flip side,
they're not allowed to have a part-time job on the weekend to like make some extra cash so they could go buy some sneakers or something.
Well, the problem what
which they get a lot of sneakers for
the
free.
NCAA I mean, they get anything you want at the bigger programs and stuff. The NCAA had issues with monitoring it because there was a local guy, Rhett Bomar, went to Oklahoma, had a part-time job at a car wash, and was getting paid tons to be at the car wash part-time for like hours he wasn't really working. Like,
Got it.
guys would be working for $15 an hour, and he's getting paid like $200 an hour by a booster or donor.
So the exception to the rule is breaking the rule.
Yeah, and so that's what the NCAA's argument on is how would they monitor like all of these? You get a school like SMU.
The legitimacy of the employment,
Yeah, and so that's where you have it, because that was SMU back in the day. The death penalty is the boosters were paying to move families there, paying for parents' jobs, and paying players, and
because they had a lot of money.
Yeah, so I mean but that's what happened to and that's why NCAA will never give that again. But there is college football, basketball, especially on both genders on basketball and college football, like they're just the moneymakers. If you look at a P&L for an athletic program,
clearly.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And so there should be money to those kids. It should be based on some additional revenues and things like that gone to the school.
Sure.
But I think it should be allocated to a trust that they get when they graduate. Yeah. And it, I don't know if part of it should be dependent on, if you graduate, which is a big piece, versus if you leave early for some reason.
And go pro.
Or you leave early and you don't get drafted and go pro.
Yeah, because if you do that, where you allow them to have it when they exit, regardless of how they exit, where's the incentive to actually finish? If they've got $300,000 sitting in a trust fund and they get it upon exit, regardless of finishing, what 23 or 22-year-olds is going to go?
What I would say, though, and where you get the argument on that, is most of the kids that are going to have that large of an allotment are going to be signing for millions at a pro level.
Yeah,
and
so that $300K is
so you still want the money, but there's got to be some clause in that, because a lot of kids, because kids aren't just going to come in, get some money, and then bounce early. Yeah. So I think there's a whole lot of red tape. NCAA is pretty hypocritical, and I say that as someone that wants to work with NCAA programs, but they're incredibly hypocritical with how they handle situations.
Yeah, you want to edit that out?
I don't really care. I have no issue saying like it's pretty unfortunate how they handle even case by case situations of. If you've seen the Disney movie Safety about the kid from Clemson, his mom was their dad was not in the picture. The mom got thrown into a rehab center. This freshman, I think he was a freshman, is having to sneak his little brother, who was like 10, into his dorm and live with him. Yeah. Oh. And they were having to hide him. And the NCAA was putting down infractions for like coaches taking this kid to school or giving them a ride or like all of these things. And so
and that's what I'm talking about.
They won the case. Yeah. The kid won the case and it's a really cool movie and Disney story and all that. But there are situations where the NCAA makes no sense whatsoever in how they levy down punishments and then how they don't. And so that's where I think the inconsistency is from a nonprofit standpoint.
Well, and especially if we look at sports as a whole, college sports, a lot of athletes, which there's a guy that I want to have on. He runs a program called True Buzz Athletics, and he takes a lot of younger boys. I think I wrote an intro email.
You did. We connected right as the middle I was moving, and as you said that, I was like, I need to reconnect with him.
Cool. But he runs a program for middle school and high school athletes to kind of groom them and coach them and expose them to football programs, D1 schools and D2 schools around the nation, so that they can get the exposure that they need, and they probably come from a lower income neighborhood. But the problem is, my issue with them not being able to have jobs, being a pretty broke kid myself, like going to college, even if you're paying my tuition and for my food, like I can't have a job, so I can't pay for stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
There's none of, most of the athletes, like they had a little bit of extra income. Your housing's covered, your food.
And what that does is, like, if you came from a poor family or a poor environment, let's say you came from the hood and everyone from your hood is selling drugs. Yeah. That's going to incentivize you to turn to illegal activity because you don't have
subsidize and
you don't have the ability to make those long-term decisions because you grew up in an environment that was very transactional and short-term. So you're going to turn to doing illegal things.
What do I need to do to
make money? I want to make money. I'm a college athlete. I need to have the freshest kicks. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and that's also on just teaching folks on the flip side of like, you're going to have. If you play football for the University of Alabama, you have all the clothes and shoes you could ever want.
Right.
The Division II, Division III levels, different ballgame. They're on academic scholarship, things like that. So I think there's rules on that, how they limit those, how they can't be connected to boosters or whatever I think are opportunities. Right. It's a messy landscape. But it's such a dirty space too, because I mean, people always
like
cheat
the
the
Olympics.
rules.
It's kind of like the Olympics. Olympic athletes don't get paid to do that stuff. They
No.
get sponsored, but like
There's not much. A friend of mine's an Olympic athlete or Olympic agent, and she's I mean, she works sponsorships, but they're making
how
nothing.
How much money do the Olympics bring in? Like, how much does it cost to run an ad during Olympic gymnastics?
I mean, quite an enterprise.
yeah.
Yeah.
So whatever.
So as the
Silly.
walking time clock of the group, I am. I'm always that one.
Whack.
Unfortunately,
Yes.
we are at the end.
Thank you for
So,
coming back and providing us with
We're
stimulating
going for a
conversations.
4P next year.
Oh yeah.
So y'all, seriously, get the book. Amazon? Can people get it on Amazon?
So they can, but it'll be easier if you go to CompeteEveryday.com.
Yeah, go to
because those are the
Compete Every Day.
autograph copies.
Oh, that's what you want.
If you
For
want the
sure.
Audible, we've got it on Audible.com and audiobooks.
Did you read it?
Dude, I will
I
highly.
would never do it otherwise.
Okay, I highly.
Pretty sure
highly,
last time you came on, I told you
Yeah.
you needed to do
I
that.
I thought you were like at the conclusion of getting the recording out, but I
Yeah.
could have that timing off.
It came out. It would have been after we all did that session, because it would have
Yeah.
been July or August when
yeah,
it released.
I can
I
remember.
think I
that.
have the audio.
So I encourage everyone, and I know this is like double paying, but listen to it. But you need to also own a hard copy. You've got to have. This is one of those books,
in the
though.
margins. This is what Shapiro does.
But listening to it isn't enough. You need to have
I agree.
both, because this is a book you want to highlight. You want to dog ear. You want to underline things. If you really, because it's a lifestyle change situation.
Heard.
And you really need to. It's your Bible.
Agreed.
I mean, my hope is you pick it up, you read it this year, and maybe next year you read it again, and something completely different,
Yeah.
a different chapter stands out, or something you want to stack on what you built this year. And
It is one of those books for sure. So go get it if you don't have it. And tell people.
CompeteEveryday.com.
Well, there we go. I was going to say, how do people
There you
find you? That's how they find you.
Compete Every Day on any social media. I still run the account, CompeteEveryday.com.
But also, Jake Thompson speaks on Instagram.
Oh, yes.
And then if you want to start the day easier, the fun thing is just text the word podcast to 972-945-9113. And every
You're gonna have to say that again.
I will. 972-945-9113. Every morning I send out a little text, and it's either to encourage, empower, equip you to show up and compete that day.
Do you have that?
No,
I need
but
to do
you-
that.
I've
Yeah,
got
we
like
should sign
thousands
up for that.
of our community members are on there. I send it, so it's not automated, it's not scheduled. I literally will roll out, send it to people, and then I'll have conversations with people throughout the day that
Wow.
respond. And
Love that.
It's a really cool little app for us that I like, because it keeps me less time on social media and more engagement with the actual community.
engagement, yeah.
So sign up. It's free. 972-945-9113. Yeah. Say
I
hi.
love it.
Word.
Thanks. All right. Well, thank you again.
Yeah,
It's
anytime.
Always good conversation.
Always good conversation.
Next time you'll have your Compete shirt on.
Oh, yes, I failed you.
Yeah, provide them. We'll wear them every episode.
Okay, fair enough.
All right. Give us a plug, Miss April.
Partnerships. www.biggirlpantspod.com. We are live in studio, not live, but we're in studio. So we're on YouTube now. So find us on YouTube, Big Girl Pants Podcast. And we get most of the downloads or most of our activity, I guess, through the podcast app on Apple, but we are also on Spotify, Google Play, and Stitcher.
Yep.
And anywhere else you listen to your podcasts.
Thanks again, guys, so much. Thank you again.
Thank you.
so much.
Yeah.
Bye.
See y'all.